Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our second session of this morning. And I'm delighted to be joined by an amazing panel for this session. We're looking at Construct Zero, the sector's approach to delivering net zero, and delighted to be joined by the prominent figures from the CLC for this session. Before I introduce them, just if you haven't been on the platform before, there's a discussion box on this session. So if you want to ask questions to our panel at the end, I'll put those questions to the panel. So you can use the boxes or just have a conversation with other colleagues as you go through. So please use that facility. So I'm going to hand over to Andy Mitchell in a minute as the co-chair of the Construction Leadership Council to introduce this session. He'll also be joined by Hannah Vickers, CEO of ACE and also Construct Zero lead with the CLC, and Fergus Harradence, Deputy Director of Construction at Bays. So welcome to you all. You also have some business champions on the call here, which I know, I think Andy, you're going to introduce shortly. So Andy, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Nathan, and good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today. So welcome to this workshop on Construct Zero, which is the sector's industry change programme to deliver net zero. I'm very pleased today to be announced some of our first round of business champions drawn from across the sector, who are now listed on the screen. Next slide. There we go, and we'll be meeting them a little later, and we'll be hearing from the four of them on why they applied to be one of our business champions and the importance of this to them personally and as a business. This workshop is also an opportunity to learn more about the Construct Zero industry change programme and its 9 priorities, which range from maximising modern methods of construction, designing out carbon, through to developing low carbon materials, and of course the very important retrofit. Over the next 45 minutes, we'll be hearing from Fergus Harradence, who's Deputy Director of the Bays Construction Unit, about Bays's work on net zero, including the importance of the CLC Construct Zero programme. We'll then hear from the 4 business champions that we see here. And then finally, we'll have 15 minutes at the end for Q&A. So if you've got questions, if you want to put them in the chat function, and we'll monitor that and we'll pick those up at the end, as well as taking any questions at that time as well. So without more ado, what I'd like to do is hand over to Fergus, who's going to talk about Bays's work in this space. So over to you, Fergus.
Thank you very much, Andy, and good morning, everyone. And as Andy said, I want to give you a little bit of background information about government policy in relation to decarbonisation and why supporting the CLC's Construct Zero initiative is a priority for us. So the very essential reason is that the built environment is a major contributor to the UK's carbon emissions. It accounts for around 40% of all UK emissions, which is equivalent to over 300 million metric tonnes a year. And this is both operational carbon produced as buildings work, but also the embedded carbon from some of the materials like steel and concrete that are incorporated into them. Now, construction accounts for around 7% of UK emissions each year, of which 55% is linked to the products used, about 20% linked to site operations, and a further 10% linked to logistics networks and the transport of products and people around the country to deliver construction projects. But what the industry builds every year contributes a lot more to our carbon emissions. So building, heating and lighting account for around 16% of all emissions. And the industry also produces a lot of infrastructure, and the road and rail sectors account for about 40% of all carbon emissions. So if the industry is going to decarbonise, it needs to use less and more sustainable materials, improve the efficiency of its operations and eliminate waste, and deliver much more energy efficient built assets. And we do have a clear trajectory to aim for in terms of achieving that, based on the Climate Change Committee's 6th carbon budget, which was published a couple of months ago. And this trajectory is going to be incorporated into legislation. And the target is to reduce UK carbon emissions by 68% by 2030, 78% by 2035, in order to make sure that we're on a pathway to deliver net zero carbon in the UK by 2050. Now, the challenge in practice is that what we need to do is to move an industry that accounts for about 9% of GDP and employs 3.1 million people in a whole variety of roles. We need to take that industry through a radical transformation from where it is now to where it needs to be. And the critical time period for achieving that really is the next decade. So it's an enormous challenge for the whole industry, which needs to innovate in order to develop better ways of producing built assets through using digital and off-site manufacturing technologies, with the objective of improving the quality, performance and productivity of the industry and minimising the waste that's linked to the creation of new buildings and infrastructure. We do need to train the industry and the workforce within it to be able to deliver retrofits to pretty close to near zero carbon standards in a large number of the UK's 29 million homes. And that means things like better insulation and also the installation of new heating systems so that we can heat our homes and heat water and other things that we need in a very different way to the way in which we do now. We're also going to have to retrofit all sorts of other types of buildings, whether they're offices, other commercial buildings and factories, to make these a lot more energy and heat efficient. We need to decarbonise product manufacturing and the logistics chain that get products to sites. And most of all, we need to make sure that we're investing in the entire workforce and equipping the workforce, both with the skills, but also with new and more collaborative behaviours and working practices in order to be able to deliver these objectives. And I think this is only going to be possible to deliver if we work in partnership, and that is the industry and also government as one of its key clients. And I think there have been some great examples of how we've managed to do this over the last year. The pandemic response to the CLC coronavirus task force has been a great example of how we've worked together to produce things like site operating procedures, to create a talent retention scheme for the industry, and produce all sorts of guidance that's relevant and helps firms and individual workers to get through the pandemic. Since 2018, we've had the Transforming Construction Challenge, which is invested a combined £420 million across the public and private sectors in the development and commercialisation of a whole range of new technologies, which will improve productivity, efficiency, minimise waste, and most importantly, achieve significant carbon emissions savings over the next few years. During the second half of 2020, we developed and then published the Construction Playbook that set the objective of resetting the relationship between the industry and government to make it more strategic and collaborative, and to support the industry to deliver better outcomes for its clients whilst becoming more productive and more profitable. And we're now working with the industry to embed that approach in the procurement of new infrastructure and construction works. And then finally, we've been developing some other tools like the Value Toolkit and the Social Value Framework, which act as a guide to the industry and hopefully will support it and its clients to define what constitutes value and how the industry can maximise its contribution to society by focusing on the how it goes about building things, as well as the what it's actually building for the clients that it has. So there's a lot of good work that's been done that can form the foundation for future collaboration. And we need to take this forward, and we need to take it forward as a matter of priority. And that's really the reason that we are keen to support Co2nstruct Zero. I think it's the latest example of a good partnership between government and the industry, and one which has the potential to deliver real benefits on both sides. And it creates a framework for a number of industry initiatives and actions, both in the run-up to COP26 at the end of the year and the Built Environment Day that will be hosted in that. But more importantly, it's about creating a longer term movement for change within the industry and supporting the industry to significantly improve its carbon performance over the pivotal decade that we're now in the middle of. We've just started on, but we'll probably pretty soon feel that we're in the middle of. So I will end there and hand back to Andy But my final comment would be this is a fantastic initiative. It's one that we fully endorse and support, and we hope that we'll be able to get a significant level of commitment from the industry to this.
You even gave me the cue and I was still on mute. Sorry about that, Fergus. Thank you. Thank you. You know, I think it's massively encouraging that we've got Co2nstruct Zero program, and quite rightly we're talking about what do we do this year, next year, and every year of this decade. I think 2050 is an important point, but of course we can't just sit here thinking, well, that's in the future, and you know, most of us will have retired by then. It's a problem for here and now, and that's why things have to change. And I think when we all look at this, whether that's our personal lives or whether that's what we do at work and with our companies, the point is so many things have to change, and we've all got different things that we can change to make impact. And that's really where our business champions come in, because obviously there are different things that different companies and different parts of the industry can do, and the challenge for all of us is to understand, well, what is it that we can do? Where can we have the biggest impact? And that's really where I'd like to bring our business champions in to ask them to introduce themselves and their company and tell us what the priorities of the 9 are most important to you and why. And we'll run through that in the order that we had the names on the slide. So that starts with Sarah, then we go to Giles, then Matthew, and then Dave finally. So if I could ask Sarah Pritchard of Bureau Happold to talk to us about what that means to her and her company.
Thanks, Andy. That's great. So it is. Let me try and give some introduction to Bureau Happold and why we're really behind, supporting this and all the points that Fergus has just made. Bureau Happold is an independent global practice of over 1,900 engineering and consulting professionals working in the built environment. Our aim is really to create enhanced outcomes, solving really complex challenges through collaboration, to use the word that Fergus has used, that focus on data and technology. And we're really thinking about all the time about making the world better for people, places, and planet. And we're putting at the moment some of our best minds into tackling the greatest challenge of our time, and that's the climate emergency. It's been a consistent theme, however, although it's a thing we're really, really focused on now. It's been a consistent theme of the firm for the 45 years since its foundation. We've always had a philosophy around touching the earth lightly. Back in 2019, we were in the vanguard of the development of Engineers Declare and Construction Declares, because we've now recognized it's really fundamental to our partnership and to our business and how it should operate, how we should support our clients and develop the awareness of the climate emergency and that path to net zero. As a firm, we're on a route map to net zero carbon through reducing our own carbon emissions. We've got targets in place for 2025. Designing all new build projects to be net zero carbon in operation by 2030, and reducing embodied carbon intensity on new buildings, major retrofits, and infrastructure projects by 50% by 2030. These are fairly bold targets to have put in place as a firm over a year ago now, but we're committed to actually articulating them, regularly reporting on our progress, and holding ourselves accountable to our people and to the wider industry for our aspiration to really achieve these targets. I also lead the ACE's Net Zero Task Force. And in the course of this, we discussed the work that the CLC was undertaking in creating Co2nstruct Zero, the Co2nstruct Zero campaign, and the 9 priorities on which they were focusing. And it really resonated well with what we were trying to achieve within the ACE and also within Bureau Happold. So that's why we were really keen to lean in and support. We found it really hard, in terms of this conversation, which of the 9 priorities is the most important to you? We're trying to honestly shift the dial on as many of them as we can, as quickly as we can, because they're all really important and we feel we can make a difference around them. Thinking about key areas where we're really trying to contribute, and because you've only given me 5 minutes to talk, I was talking about priority, key bits around priority 6, possibly enhancing energy performance of new and existing buildings. In 2021, Bureau Happel won CIBSE's coveted Building Performance Consultancy of the Year for the 4th year running. Okay, it's something we really, really focus on doing because it highlights our commitment to verifying operational energy use on projects and closing performance gaps. We've become pioneering delivery partners for the new Neighbours Design for Performance scheme, with a number of projects underway targeting net zero. We're really training our staff in energy and building performance design, including passive house and eco districts. This week, it's the start of our new financial year. We always transition on the 1st of May. And actually, it's a really good time to be talking to you because we've actually been able to validate our science-based targets, confirm the offset of our greenhouse gas emissions as a firm for 2019-20, in line with our net zero carbon commitments. We're trying to deal with the scope 1 and 2 carbon emissions. We're committed to the Race to Zero campaign, and we're aligned with the business ambitions for 1.5 degrees centigrade. That's all part of what we're trying to do as a firm in terms of our own operation. Including this, in our offices, we're refurbishing a number at the moment. It's been a good opportunity. Things have been quiet in the offices. But we are working to reduce energy demand, switching global energy supplies to green tariffs, and setting actual carbon budgets for our business travel, and also so that we're really focused on why we travel and what impact that has on the environment and what we're saying to clients. We're also targeting reductions in commuter travel through, as we go into a hybrid working model, the BBC were talking about this morning, as we move forward on that, really using that to try and reduce our commuter travel, which also has to be part of a business's responsibility. Just quickly, we're also very keen on priority 8, becoming world leaders in designing out carbon. We've taken a full, comparative study of embodied carbon associated with a range of different standing building typologies, and using the information we've gained on that to inform our approach around new design briefs. We have an embodied carbon calculator. We now use that on all projects, and we put the results into dashboards and a database, so that again we can monitor our own progress and actually really try and work towards our interim 2030 targets. We're making sure that we're sharing our knowledge. We're involved in as many industry organisations in this area as we possibly can be. And as a firm, we're running a series of webinars and masterclasses to share our knowledge and that of collaborators around reuse and repurposing buildings and assets, again, to try and help drive those thoughts around the circular economy. I, like other senior colleagues of Bureau Happel, believe that the biggest challenge is getting people to understand that we all need to do something starting now to contribute to stemming the challenges of climate change if we're going to, to meet those ambitions by 2050. We can't rely on a magic bullet or innovative technology or materials that may appear sometime in the future. We hope they will. We need to start acting now. And I think actually we can all make a difference on a personal level in our homes and communities, again, picking up on what Fergus was saying, as engineers and in the construction industry, in the way that we design and construct buildings, in helping our clients understand the alternatives, which, we can't expect our clients to know necessarily understand how they can use less embodied or in-use carbon in a building. We have to take them on that journey. Or even maybe reusing an existing building rather than demolishing it and starting again from scratch. And, we're really keen to work with professional bodies and trade associations, and, and other forums such as Co2nstruct Zero to, change, move the dial together for the good of our people, our places and our planet. Okay. I think that's all I want to say, Andy. I'll pass it.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Sarah. So, right, we're next going to Giles Bradford of Bradfords. Over to you, Giles.
Andy, thanks very much for the introduction. So, Giles Bradford, Bradford's Building Supply. So, we're an independent builders merchant based in the southwest with about 44 branches. So, we were 250 years old last year, and we've spent the past 9 months really investigating our connection with our community over that time. We've always been part of the Southwest community. and we've always been helping it to build and grow. Looking back in time, we influenced the development of the inland waterways, the railways in the area, all obviously to help us, but also to support trade, wider trade in that region. And I guess now the pressing problem we're in a position to help our communities solve, specifically in the built environment, is the requirement to reduce the reliance on fossil fuels, reduce carbon emissions, and to increase energy efficiency of the built environment. It's just the next challenge within our communities that we can help with. And I guess from that point of view, it's very easy to say why we want to be part of Co2nstruct Zero. Being a business champion is all about supporting our mission to help our communities build sustainably. But actually, there was I guess a slightly more selfish part to it, which is that with so many different approaches to the net zero agenda, and knowing that we couldn't do it on our own, we wanted to be part of a national framework within the sector to make sure that we're kind of helping with the sum of the parts, as opposed to going off as a maverick and thinking we know how to do it ourselves. We can support without doubt, but we're not arrogant enough to think that we won't need support too. We're all on a journey, and I'm definitely, for one, looking forward to using Co2nstruct Zero to help us along the way and to make sure we're doing the right thing. The arrival of a national sector framework for construction route to net zero was very welcome at Bradfords. In terms of the priorities, I'm going to talk about two today. We're looking at as many of them as possible. There are a couple that aren't so relevant in the merchant industry, but priority two, not so much in the modern methods of construction, but definitely looking at waste and logistics. So we're seeing some very interesting challenges around the cost of packaging, particularly at the end of the value chain, and how that gets returned into the system. Already having conversations with suppliers about recovery from sites, as well as reducing packaging from the outset, which we see as a priority. However, as I said earlier, we're just little Bradfords, and that's definitely something that will require a collaborative approach, I suspect, across the entire merchanting community to make it happen up at the supply level. Internally, we already pack all our used bulk bags to return to the supplier, bale plastic at our branches, and divert as much as possible of our waste, over 90% of our non-recyclable waste from landfill. We've also started to use a cardboard perforator at our distribution centre, which means we're no longer using bubble wrap and plastic inside boxes, but reusing the waste cardboard that comes in. From a logistics point of view, we always call ourselves the final mile distribution service. I'm sure there are some occasions where the supplier travels less distance than we do to get it to its final destination, but we are a final mile distribution service, but every bit counts. And I guess our goal there is to make our deliveries as efficient as possible. Our LGV delivery service is without doubt our biggest carbon footprint. And of course, so therefore there's a both commercial and environmentally advantageous benefit to getting this right. We want the most fuel efficient fleet, but we're also aware that actually there's a huge carbon cost in putting new vehicles in just for the sake of having them be more fuel efficient. So we're very careful about how we do that. But really, it's actually digital technology which is going to make the biggest difference here, which is integrating our order system with our delivery schedule system to allow us to be really efficient and minimize the miles that we travel in order to fulfill those deliveries. The second priority that we really focus on, which I guess when it comes as a surprise, is priority 4, supporting the government retrofit programme. So our focus as a business is very much on the domestic RMI market. We recently opened our first sustainable home centre at our relocated Glastonbury branch, and that provides a focus not only for us as a business to see what's going on, but also to be able to direct customers, whether that be the trades or even the homeowners, somewhere to actually go and see and touch and feel what the future built environment might look like, particularly at the moment from an energy point of view, where we focus on air source, ground source, and solar. The second point that I think is really important around priority 4 is around representation. So obviously I'm sitting here now as a business, representing Bradfords as a business champion, but we also represent the merchants on the Green Construction Board. And this is our opportunity to not only ensure that the merchant sector is represented in the net zero conversation, but crucially, we can support our trade customers too by bringing their views. We have a really close relationship with our customers. And I think the ability to bring that view up to bear up at CLC level is really important to make sure that end user is borne in mind in everything that we do. Sticking to priority 4, if we look the other way down the supply chain to the end user, there's no doubt there's quite a pool of information out there that comes from a variety of sources that isn't perhaps that clear. And so our responsibility, we feel, is to provide that source of information that gives them a really clear. So we're working very hard on creating that support system that doesn't just sell products, but actually provides advice and knowledge and the go-to place. And we're working with Trustmark and our renewables partner to develop that as we speak. There's already training scheduled at our Sustainable Home Centre for June and beyond. Priority 1, not quite as high on our list at the moment, but EV, electric vehicles, are rapidly evolving in environment, and we kind of talk about it like when you buy a laptop and it's kind of out of date the minute you take it out of the shop. But actually, the removal of the tax exemption for diesel forklifts, diesel in forklifts, has really accelerated our progress on that, because suddenly what wasn't a commercial option suddenly looks quite sensible. Our aim is to integrate our electric vehicle infrastructure so that actually we've got one solution, whether that's for charging forklifts, our own fleet, vans and cars, or indeed customers. But that's very much a work in progress. In addition, we do hire fleet, diggers, dumpers, anything you want, and we're also looking at that. And that brings us back neatly to looking down the supply chain to support our customers in terms of the fact that actually they're very used to using very efficient, very good internal combustion powered devices, and kind of getting them on board with the concept that actually an electric one might do the job just as well. And clearly we're talking to suppliers about how far we've got towards those electric devices being as good as, in terms of what they're designed to do, the internally combusted ones. I guess my final comment is simply internal. So a lot of that looks externally, it's simply internal, and clearly there's a program going on where we're in the process of setting targets and understanding exactly where our priorities are around our own energy consumption, our own carbon footprint. And that is a very whistle-stop tour of Bradfords.
Giles, thank you very much indeed. And I think, you know, we can see already something that became crystal clear to the CLC through last year and dealing with the impacts of the pandemic, that we may do very, very different things in this industry, but we are part of an ecosystem, and it became crystal clear very early on last year that you do have to have all parts of the supply chain together. We do depend on materials, and the same sorts of materials, and if one piece of the industry fails, the whole lot fails, and I think we're going to see the same again here as we tackle this challenge. So that's and that really makes that point very clearly. So next, if I could ask Matthew Pearce of APP Wholesale to tell us his story.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the introduction. So my name is Matthew Pearce. We are a business serving other businesses and homeowners with heating and hot water solutions. I'm acutely aware of the impact of our main product line, which is gas boilers, and its contribution to the UK's carbon output. We need to start mitigating our impact. Having the opportunity to showcase our ideas through the BMF Business Champions is beneficial to not only get the support of the industry, but also of my own colleagues and the business, because that can be really challenging. Change is going to be a challenge, but creating the urgency now, we do have the chance of making it possible. I hope I could be a great champion, showing how a business can mitigate their risk, just by reducing the impact of normal operating activities. So I have identified a number of activities that will actually save the business money, reduce their liability, and make our customers happier. One of these impacts is the problem of what happens to a boiler at the end of its life. There is currently no recycling or organised collection of boilers when they're finished. The yearly boiler exchanges amounts to around about 1.4 million appliances, and none of the waste is documented, and no one can tell me where it goes. So we've now set up an innovative way to collect the material. And then this has created a solution to our customers with their waste. I mean, waste crime in the UK costs around about £600 million a year. And the lack of transparency is encouraging the black economy. So the scheme will facilitate our customers to mitigate their liability for the material they produce. So this asset is now in place for us, and we've started to look at other opportunities, and this has led us to look at returns and damages within the business. Allowing damages and returns to go unchecked costs the business money and also loses often good, although slightly soiled, finished products. Taking the correct action of either like repair or recycle will reduce the amount that goes to landfill or is just lost without responsible recycling. So product development has been one of my main business activities, but I've never really considered end of life. I'm now talking with different manufacturers about this and how we can help to complete the circle, looking at the impact of the products that we sell into the market and how they are packaged and how we can reduce this to limit the amount of waste. We started to audit our products and look at the use of plastic bags on small products. The over bagging of items in boxes is something that we are looking to tackle. We're hoping to influence manufacturers to look at other possibilities and techniques without the risk of damage to the product. We also import quite a lot of product ourselves, and we're now going to start auditing that as well. The company also has a fleet of vehicles to deliver to our customers, and we're hoping to use technology to enhance the experience, but also aggregate deliveries to make them not only more efficient and reducing waste. I mean, the benefit to the business will be measured in the terms of reduced costs, but also less carbon emitted. The choice for our customers may actually be a more convenient delivery, so adding more trust and loyalty to our brand. And that's everything that I'm trying to do is to make the business more involved by actually showing that we could, by reducing our impact, we can actually save money. The BMF is acting as a great supporter of our activities towards reducing carbon, and this helps me to gain more support from within my business. I would really like to explore any opportunities or comments from any of the panel today, and thank you very much for listening. It's a bit shorter than everyone else, but hopefully it's a bit.
That's perfect. Thank you, Matthew. And I think again, what we're hearing here is there are so many different ways and directions we can look in, and your point of less carbon, less cost, more reliability. What is there not to like about that as an approach? And for sure, one of the things that we're hoping to do with the business champions is get all of this visible so we can all see, okay, they're doing that. Why can't we do that? And learning off each other, as Giles and Sarah were saying. So wonderful. Thank you very much. So last but not least, we've got Dave Wakelin of Mace.
Andy. I've been a sustainability practitioner for 20 years now, working across the industry. I've been working with Mace for the last 9 years. And for those of you who don't know, we're a multidisciplinary business. We're a developer in our own right. We're a project and program manager internationally around the world. Most people will know us as a big contractor delivering schemes across the UK primarily. But we also run a building operations business, facilities management business. So we're a really broad, diverse business who touches an awful lot of different parts of the sector. We deliver £1.75 billion of construction activity, but we think actually as an organisation, we've probably managed about £30 billion of the construction works a year. So our influence is huge. We have the ability to go and sort of really help clients shape what they go and do around the carbon story in particular. And the business has become very, very committed to reducing its carbon footprint itself. We set targets many years ago around to try and reduce our carbon emissions year on year. And in 2019 announced we're going to become net zero carbon by the end of 2020, which we achieved last year. We set ourselves some more stretching targets as part of our 2026 business plan, which was launched a couple of months ago, that are looking to drive our own performance harder. So we're looking at 10% year-on-year reduction in our own carbon footprint through everything that we do across the business, whether it's the operations of our organisation, through procurement of renewable energy for our global offices, through to how we deliver our construction activities and moving in towards sort of being diesel-free in our construction activities. And then what we're also looking to do is how we influence our clients. I mentioned we have this enormous sort of volume of influence around the world. So we've committed ourselves to try and save 1 million tonnes of client carbon by 2026 through the work that we can do with taking out embodied carbon in the construction products that we deliver and saving the client's carbon there through changing structural solutions or upgrading M&E systems so that we're reducing carbon footprint. But also what we can do with our clients from a consultant perspective. So we do an awful lot of work in the public sector trying to help our clients reduce the operational footprint of their buildings. It's very, very closely linked to our purpose as an organisation, to trying to drive the ambition into the industry. And from a personal perspective, I've been talking about this stuff for 20 years. I've now got a platform through this forum to come and really shout. There's so much collective will that has perhaps not been there as much as it could have been for the last 10 years. It's now started. There's a groundswell there. There's so much enthusiasm, so much imperative around the topic. It's just given us opportunities that will really go and help drive the agenda forward. And I think as an organisation, we've seen tackling the climate change agenda in the same way we saw safety 5-10 years ago. It's a collective industry effort. Yes, there's going to be some critical advantages for stuff that we can do that perhaps others can't, but ultimately we need to pull together as an industry to tackle the problem. We can't do it in isolation. So we're really open and committed to sort of sharing the work that we're doing as an organisation with the other members of the panel through Co2nstruct Zero, through the CLC, and other organisations we're part of, to really help share best practice and drive the industry forward. That's what we're committed to. That's our ambition, and that's what we want to make sure we've supported. In terms of priorities, obviously, because of the breadth of our business, we touch on all of the priorities, and they're all relevant to different parts of our organisation. But I think fundamentally, similar to Sarah earlier on, our real focus is around the buildings that we create, and priority 6. As a contractor, we're determined to leave a legacy behind in the buildings that we deliver. What we don't want to leave is a legacy of enormous load of carbon emissions that are associated with that development. We want to make sure we've minimised the footprint as far as we possibly can, both in the construction phase, in terms of how much embodied carbon is in that building, but also in terms of how much operational carbon is being emitted by that building in operation. So we want to make sure that everything we design as a project manager or deliver as a contractor is minimising that emission as far as it possibly can. But also recognising that actually new construction is only the tip of the iceberg. Most of the stock that's going to be around in 2050 that needs to be zero carbon is already standing. There's an enormous opportunity, an enormous challenge around how we focus on the refurbishment programmes. 24,000 schools, 110 prisons, 29 million homes, all that need to be upgraded and enhanced to make sure that we're tackling the climate challenge going forward. But for us, that's a massive opportunity. Because we have knowledge across so many different parts of our business, we can bring knowledge from our operate business and apply that into our project management teams to work at how we can deliver better opportunities for our clients. So it's a real opportunity for us to sort of bring together all the knowledge we have across our sectors in one organisation, share that across our own organisation with our own clients, but also with the wider industry to make sure that we're all pulling in the same direction. And obviously, from a business perspective, it's a massive opportunity for work winning and securing a long-term pipeline of projects, but actually it's one that's not just around the financial bottom line. The work we'll be doing is actually really driven by delivering really positive environmental and social benefits, which is really what we're trying to do with all the projects that we deliver. So it's something that our teams and our people are really engaged with because they can see the outcomes, the benefits we're delivering, which is why I've had so much engagement across the entire organisation of 6,500 people around driving the climate agenda forward. That was it from me.
Okay, thank you, Dave. It's a crying shame it's taken 20 years of your career to get to this point, and I guess on behalf of society I apologise, but I think your time has come, and you've got to seize that. We've got a number of questions coming in, but I thought I'd like to first ask Giles and then Matthew, what does this mean to your staff and to your customers? Do you get a sense that, yeah, we're all starting to get this now, Giles? I
think from the research I've done, certainly at the customer level, and we have to remember that our staff are also customers at the end of the day as well. I think the concept of the conscious consumer is very much there, perhaps coming now in the food industry and perhaps the car industry place. I think as a construction sector, we're definitely still behind on that. So one of our priorities is absolutely around how do we get our teams on board with this? We're a traditional bricks and mortar business, and we actually their understanding is with no disrespect to those that totally get it in the business, their understanding is through no fault of their own quite limited. So I think there's a huge piece of work to do, and probably sits at the top of my in tray is about getting them on board.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. What does it look like from your end?
Terrible, and I think people are going to have to be dragged through really considerably. I think I mean we supply the latest technology to do with thermostats and stuff like that to reduce heating and all that sort of stuff. The adoption is not strong enough. I think also the urgency is not there. I don't think people understand what it means to get to 2050 at all. And I think that needs to be highly communicated. Yeah. Builders and plumbers and stuff like that, I think it's not on their priority. I think the homeowners are a really good start, but I think that in our market anyway, one-off boiler replacement, it's unfortunately it's just about getting through. So some of the figures are, there's not enough installers, there's not enough trained people to do the jobs. I think if there was more, I think we need 450,000 installers. We've only got 125,000 at the moment. Yeah. So there's a massive skill shortage.
And that's something that we see across CLC, almost regardless of what element of change, it comes back to skills, awareness, new entrants, and the whole story, doesn't it? No, okay, thank you very much. So we've got a number of questions here. I apologize for looking like someone out of a Bohemian Rhapsody video of the 1970s. The light's coming through the window and it keeps changing, so I'm fading in and out. Sorry about that. Question that came in, where can we see the 9 priorities, Hannah?
Thanks, Andy. I'll flash them up on the screen now just as a very quick, so people can see them. So you should be able to see those. Can you see those now? If they come up? Yeah, okay, fine. So that is them, if people want to have a very quick look. What I will say is they are going to be on the CRC website. So we are launching the new Co2nstruct Zero part of the CRC website today, which is going to host our business champion stories, but all of the background information, all of the framework and the news as that framework develops over the next few months will be on there. So that's the 9. They're not secret. They're very, very open. Go and have a look on the CRC website.
So hopefully by the time we get off this, they'll be visible there.
Yeah,
as will the list of the current business champions. We have 4 of them here with us now. There should be 15 on that list by the time you go and have a look. So that's that. I'm conscious of time. A couple of questions for Fergus. So Treasury, more support, carbon reduction. Where do we go from better version of Green Homes grant as a starting point?
Yes, well, an enormous amount of work is being undertaken as part of the preparations for the spending review that will happen later this year. So we are working with the Treasury on a whole range of different types of support for decarbonising construction. It will be across R&D and innovation, but we'll also be looking at how we can use existing government funding commitments and programmes in areas like housing or the infrastructure investment to produce better, greener buildings. And one thing that will be under consideration is how we can support retrofit. And that is possibly through a scheme that works in a similar way to the Green Homes grant, and hopefully builds on the lessons that we've learned from that. But that's also where we will, I imagine, be considering some of the other proposals that I see in the chat around tax changes and other incentives that will actually persuade individual homeowners who really are a key constituency whose behaviour we need to change to invest more in decarbonising their homes.
Okay, thank you. So yes, the question on tax on poor carbon products. The point around brought up by Keith Aldis around the carbon transport footprint of products, and surely something produced more locally would have a lower one. I mean, what's the government thinking in terms of encouraging home produced, I suppose?
Well, the social value framework and some of the other initiatives that we've put in place do ask public sector procurers to take account of the sustainability and the wider social impact of what they procure, whether that's products or services. I'm not expecting that emphasis in government procurement activities and government spending programs to change. But I would note that this really is quite a complex area. I mean, it is sometimes hard to define exactly what the carbon footprint of a product is. And just because a product is produced along railway does not necessarily mean that it has a higher carbon footprint. It might have a higher carbon footprint in terms of transport, but that's not necessarily the case in terms of the production processes. So this is a difficult and complex area, but I suspect it is going to be something that more and more becomes a factor in decision making across the public and private sector. I don't think that's going to change because the trajectory of decarbonisation is clear. And effectively, people are going to have to start taking considerations like this into account because they're going to have to understand what the embodied carbon in the built assets they're producing is and how they are going to manage down that carbon deficit over the life of the asset.
Yeah, no, it's a fair. You can certainly see that if we truly understood the carbon footprint of a product from cradle to grave, then it would be pretty clear which direction we should be going. And I think there's almost an inevitability about that. Look, I'm conscious of the time. It is 10:47. We're a couple of minutes over. I think we've got through the questions that were there. What I would like to do is thank everybody for tuning into this and for asking the questions. To thank Fergus and Hannah, but also our 4 business champions. Very much appreciate your input. We've heard from a really wide range of the industry, and it is clear there's something that all of us can do, and it isn't about next decade, it's about today, tomorrow, and every week thereafter. So I think this is a hugely exciting time. I think there's a lot we've got to learn from each other. I thank you and applaud you for being our first set of champions. And I look forward to speaking more as we all go on this journey together. So, Nathan, I think that's us. I'll hand back to you.
Thank you very much, Andy, and thank you very much to everybody taking part. I think that was, we've had some great comments, people in the discussion rooms. I think it's really positive, and we've had a really positive couple of days. I think the sector's proving that it can take this opportunity now to tackle some of the big issues. So thank you very much, and maybe we can follow this up in October when we can actually meet, by the look of it, at UK Construction Week. So we're all looking forward to that. I think the sector, I've heard and I feel that the sector really would like to do that too. So that would be great. So just to remind people, we've got another session at 11:30, which is construction design management, which is looking at actually again some of the changes that have happened because of the pandemic and how we go on site safely, and also at 12:30 looking at building fire strategies. Again, post Grenfell, how we can improve on the buildings that we live in. So thank you very much, everybody, and look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.